Thank you so much. So we are recording this, and we will put this portion of tonight's event on our YouTube channel for others to view. My name is Kevin Creech. I am chair of Wake County Democratic Party. I'm super excited to welcome all of you here this evening. We have quite an event for you. The CD13 race is turning out to be really, really interesting. And I'm very glad and grateful that the candidates are here this evening. So before I go much farther, I would like to ask any officers of other county parties, that's officers of county parties like a chair, a first vice chair, to please chat to Zach. Zach has help in his chat. Tell him your name, your party, and your position. And in a moment, I will ask Zach to call you out. So please do that if you are an officer in another county party. And speaking of folks in county parties, I want to introduce to you some of the folks who are helping out this evening. Of course, our wonderful executive director, Frank Sokolowski, who will be running a lot of information in the background. So thank you so much, Frank. Our first vice chair, Brandy Brown, she will be our timekeeper for the evening. Elaine Okal, who is our Wake vice chair, will be assisting with asking some of the questions for the forum. Jackie Jones, our Apex vice chair, will be copying and pasting information into the chat for our candidates to rely on. And we have a wonderful new volunteer who's jumped in with both feet. His name is Zach Burley. He's in the help chat. Several of these folks will also be serving as moderators in the breakout rooms later the second half of the session. So at this time, Zach, have you received any chats from anyone who is an officer from another Democratic Party, County Democratic Party?
We just did. We have one in here, Sheila Whittington, who is the third vice chair of the Johnston County Party.
Awesome, Joco. We love Joco. That's one of our sister counties. Hello, Sheila. It's nice to have you. Thank you for attending with us this evening. Okay, well, we're going to move on pretty quickly. The first thing we're going to do is just get a very basic hello from our wonderful candidates. Candidates, what you can expect is to be unmuted and spotlit. You get about 30 seconds to say hello. You and I are going to have a little chat, just a quick hello, and then you get 30 seconds to yourself, and then we'll move on to the next. For this portion, we will be moving in alphabetical order. After that, we will get to the forum questions, and I will explain more about how that will roll once we get there. I do need to give you a message though. Jamie Bowles, who is another CD13 candidate, she could not be here this evening. She is unfortunately not well. She is quite under the weather, but she wanted me to let you all know that she wished she could be here, and she hopes that for future engagements that other county parties are having, that she can attend there. So I want to share that. First of all, we're going to start with Nathan Click. After that, Denton Lee. After that, Senator Sam Searcy. And then after that, Senator Wiley Nickel. That's not exactly in alphabetical order, but it's close enough for government work. So Nathan Click, how you doing? Hi.
Hey, I'm doing well. I'm doing well. I'm a little slow on the trigger with the unmute button. I apologize for that, but I'm doing well.
Okay. Well, we are really excited to have you here. I believe you hail from Morrisville. And so if you could take about 30 seconds to say hello to the crew, it would be wonderful.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. First, I want to say thank you to everyone for coming to these events. This is important for everybody to participate in our democracy. My name is Nathan Click. I'm running for Congress. I believe in democracy, and I believe that we need to reclaim our voice. Every citizen needs to participate in our democracy, and we need to make democracy work for everyone. We need to make an economy that works for everyone, and we need to restore faith in our government. That's why I'm running for Congress.
Thank you so much, Mr. Click. That was wonderful. All right, next up, Mr. Denton Lee.
Good evening, everybody. My name is, as she said, Denton Lee. I'm a lifelong resident of Johnston County. My wife's name is Megan. I have 3 kids ranging from 3 to almost 17. And I am a special ed teacher at Smithfield-Selma High School. Back in 2020, I was actually the only unaffiliated candidate in the entire state running for the General Assembly, and actually got the highest percentage of the vote among third-party candidates. statewide. So I ran a good race. As you know, however, it is impossible to compete that way. So I steered away from King Donald and put a D beside my name, and so I could compete. And here we are. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Mr. Lee. Next, outside of alphabetical order, and I know Wiley Nickel is sitting in the background laughing at me right now, but we're going to talk to Sam Searcy real quickly.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kevin. And I want to thank the members of the Wake County Democratic Party for putting tonight's event together. I live here in the district in Holly Springs. I am a father of 4 with kids ranging in age from 5 to 12, 2 boys and 2 girls. I'm a small business owner and a former North Carolina state senator, having won election twice here in Southern Wake. I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Senator Searcy. And last but not least, Senator Wiley Nickel, who's going to give me a lot of grief because I don't know how to do my ABCs. Where are you, Wiley Nickel?
Hey, I'm right here doing my best to deal with the allergy suffering right now. Hope everyone is doing well. It is great to be here. You know, I'm Wiley Nickel. Listen, I worked for President Obama during some of his toughest fights to deliver healthcare and quality education to our country. And we're bringing that message of hope and change to this campaign as we fight for voting rights and an economy that works for everyone. I'm running to serve the people, not big corporations and special interests, and I will never quit on you. My constituents in Cary and Raleigh know me as someone they can always count on. That's why I overperformed the average Democrat and won by wide margins in every election. I hope to earn your vote on May 17th because it is truly time to level the playing field for North Carolina working families. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Senator Nickel. Great. Okay, so let me share with you all how this is going to go forth. We have 4 specific questions that each of the candidates will answer. This is round robin style. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer the question as best as he can. We will read the question twice. Apex Vice Chair Jackie Jones will also copy and paste the question into the chat for some people who are visual learners and need to see that done in that way. The order is based on a random drawing that Frank ran for me this afternoon. Whoever goes first for the forum question gets to go last for the closing statements. The closing statements will be 2 minutes apiece as well. After that, we will go into breakout rooms. There are 4 breakout rooms, A, B, C, and D. Folks, we just sit still. Frank's going to plop us in. We're going to whoosh right in. Our candidates, however, will have to move from breakout room to breakout room. There will be 6 minutes in each breakout room and about a 1-minute transition for our candidates. There are 2 other questions that will be asked in the breakout room, and hopefully the candidates will be able to answer those in 1 to 2 minutes each and have a little bit of time to interact directly with constituents. So again, we get to sit back and relax, and we're going to put these fellas to work. And after that is done, then everyone can just go home for the evening. I mean, you can hang out here if you'd like to, but at some point, you know. All right, so this is what's going to happen right now. I'm going to give you the order. And the order is as follows. Mr. Click, you will start for this question, followed by Senator Searcy, followed by Senator Nickel, and last but not least, Mr. Lee. So again, Mr. Click, Senator Searcy, Senator Nickel, and Mr. Lee. I will be asking this question. The topic of this question is healthcare. I will read the question 2 times, and Jackie Jones will put the question in the chat for you. So Mr. Click, are you ready?
Yes, Kevin.
All right, you get 2 minutes. Please highlight Mr. Click. Very well. Okay. The U.S. recently celebrated the 12th anniversary of the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. Meanwhile, North Carolina remains one of only 12 states that has not expanded Medicaid. Further, the pandemic has highlighted the many disparities in access to health care. As the U.S. continues to be the only country in the developed world without universal health care, and as 12 states, including North Carolina, refuse to expand Medicaid, what, in your opinion, can or should be done at the federal level to support health care access for your constituents in Congressional District 13? I'll read it one more time. As the U.S. continues to be the only country in the developed world without universal health care, and as 12 states, including North Carolina, refuse to expand Medicaid, what, in your opinion, can or should be done at the federal level to support healthcare access for your constituents in the Congressional District 13? When you begin, you will have 2 minutes. Brandy Brown will alert you when you have 15 seconds left, and she will alert you when time is up.
Well, thank you, Kevin, for that question. It's an important question. Access to healthcare should be something that's a no-brainer in the United States. For the life of me, I cannot imagine why the state of North Carolina and why our elected officials here have not expanded Medicaid. Healthcare is an essential thing that working families and all families absolutely need. What I believe that the federal government can do to expand healthcare is, first off, expand the Affordable Health Care Act to cover the gaps. We still live in a country where people may not qualify for certain provisions of the ACA and can't afford insurance on their own. So there are gaps in the law. We have to expand those gaps. The option for states to expand Medicare, I think that should be required. I believe this is something that we can bring to everyone. I am a supporter of a public option and several public options. I think that we should expand healthcare that way to make sure that we can provide it to everyone. One of the important drawbacks in healthcare is not only for all Americans, which we should bring healthcare to all Americans, but especially for veterans. As a veteran myself, accessing healthcare through the VA is a very traumatic experience. I was personally on the phone for an hour on hold with the VA here recently, dealing with healthcare claims. So we need to make sure that healthcare is expanded for not only working families, but for our local heroes, our veterans as well. And expanding the Affordable Health Care Act to cover those gaps is something that's essential. And if necessary, we just take the decision making out of the hands of the state and expand healthcare at the federal level across the states. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Click. I appreciate that. Senator Searcy, you are up next. Do you need me to repeat any portion of the question?
No, ma'am, I've got it. Thank you.
All right, 2 minutes.
Thanks, Kevin. As I have traveled across this district, healthcare is the #1 issue that I hear people talking about and asking questions about. And let me just tell you a quick story. In 2016, I was diagnosed with a benign tumor that was kind of on my spine. It was starting to interact with my spinal cord, but it was on a peripheral nerve and also growing into a vertebrae. And I thought I had hurt my back, but an MRI showed that it was a tumor. That tumor was removed a week later, and thank God I had insurance, because that surgery cost over $450,000. If anyone else had not had insurance and had that procedure done, they would have had to declare medical bankruptcy. And we see this over and over and over again. Here are several things we can do to address the issue now. #1, I think we should drop the age of availability of Medicare benefits to 50. #2, I think we've got to allow Medicare to negotiate prescription drug prices. Those two things will help some of our older adults get the medical help that they need and the insurance coverage that they need. We also critically have got to expand Medicaid. I mean, my goodness, we were talking about that in our first campaign back in 2018, Medicaid expansion here in North Carolina, and it still has not happened. That is critical and has to happen. And I think it's also important to look at things that we've done in the state Senate. I voted and supported the Rural Hospital Stabilization Act, in addition to numerous other healthcare benefits. I have also created 2 healthcare companies that focus on clinical research. And in the clinical research industry, we develop and bring life-saving treatments to people all around the world. And the companies that I have formed help companies drop the prices of prescription drugs because we expedite the clinical trial process. So we've got to work with the private sector and the government public sector to make sure that we're addressing these issues and can get healthcare to the majority of people in this country.
Thank you so much, Senator Searcy. Next up, Senator Nickel. Would you like
Thanks
me
so
to
much.
repeat? Are you good?
No, I got it.
All
Thanks so much. Listen, I lost my father to lung cancer when I was in high school. So this is an issue that for me has been the cause of my life, to make sure everybody has access to affordable healthcare. No one should have to go through that kind of thing without healthcare. So I have worked for every presidential campaign, 2 White Houses, fighting for affordable healthcare. And that's what I've done as a state senator. The first bill that I co-sponsored was the Medicaid expansion bill. And I'm very glad to tell everybody here that we're making progress on that in the state Senate. I feel very good about where we are for the short session coming up in terms of getting Medicaid expansion through the Senate. I think we're close in the House, but this is something that is critical for North Carolina. We're talking about $4 billion of economic activity, 95% paid for by the federal government. This will save rural hospitals. And for all of us who aren't covered, 500,000 people will get covered, when we expand Medicaid. But for those of us who already have health care, when you bring those people into the system, it's going to bring our costs down by, some estimates say, 7%. So this is something that is a huge priority for me. It's something I've been working on as I have stayed in the Senate to fight on these issues, and I've also done so much else to push for healthcare. One of the things that I'm very proud of is my work to try to get funding for a nurse in every public school. In Wake County, we have one nurse for every 3 or 4 schools, especially during this pandemic. That is a must. And on the federal level, we've got to get to universal healthcare. Healthcare is a human right. That's where we've got to start on this issue. And I want to talk for a second about the high cost of prescription drugs. In Washington, this is one of the grossest issues. We have almost 3 lobbyists for every single member of Congress.
15 seconds.
And Americans pay 2.5 times what every other Western nation pays for brand name prescription drugs. And we can fix this. But we've got to get tough. In Congress, I'm committed to doing everything I can to lower the cost of prescription drugs by allowing Medicare to negotiate with drug companies.
Senator Nickel,
Penalize.
thank you very much.
Penalize drug companies. Okay. And add hearing, vision, and dental to Medicare for our seniors.
Thank you very much. All right. Finally, we've got Mr. Denton Lee. Mr. Lee, do you need me to repeat the question?
No, ma'am, I got it.
All right.
All right, thank you. Everything they said about Medicaid expansion in North Carolina, no brainer, has to happen. I mean, it's just, there's too many. I mean, it will affect 500,000 people and be an economic boost to the state. It's a no brainer. Overall, we have got a systemic problem. We do not have a Affordable Care Act problem. We don't have a lack of universal health care problem, although I do agree we have a lack of universal health care problem. But we have a healthcare system that since 2007 has increased 120%. In the same length of time, we have had a GDP that has gone up 24%. It is increasing at 5 times the rate of GDP. It's systemic. It is a huge, huge problem that we have got to correct. Pharmaceuticals are number 1 in lobbying dollars. Insurance is number 2 in lobbying dollars. We're never going to fix this unless we fix that. And I can't even imagine. I have a similar story to theirs. My first wife, who actually passed away in 2008, she had a brain tumor. She was diagnosed in 2006. And so for 14 months, the total cost was a little over $1 million. We spent $8,000 out of pocket. Can you imagine what that would be now at 120% increase? So we have a systemic problem, and I would love universal health care to be part of our solution one day, but I don't see it happening until we fix the system. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Lee. Okay, up next, Elaine Ogal will be asking the next question. The topic will be on the environment. Elaine, I'm turning it over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good evening, gentlemen. The second question is on the environment. The order will be Senator Searcy, Senator Nickel, Mr. Lee, and then Mr. Click. Again, I will read the question twice. The question will be put in the chat, and then if you need it repeated, I'll be happy to repeat it. So a report out today from the United Nations shed an alarming light on the growing climate crisis and the shortened window in which to address it. North Carolina faces a number of consequences from climate change, but the state has a particular threat to its water supply. Drought-like conditions have plagued the state in the past 5 years and show no signs of slowing. Both coal ash and other industrial pollutants threaten the availability of clean water through the contamination of major rivers and groundwater. The Environmental Protection Agency cited the state's rapid residential development as a major cause of the depletion of the state's aquifers. While Wake County continues to grow at a fast clip, Johnston County topped the 2020 census for the fastest growing county in the state. What do you believe the federal government could and should do to address the future of clean, available water, and how does that fit into your platform? Again, what do you believe the federal government could and should do to address the future of clean, available water, and how does that fit into your platform? And we'll start with Senator Searcy.
Thank you, Elaine. Appreciate the question. This is a critically important issue. I have not always lived in Wake County, so I grew up in the mountains of Western North Carolina, and we have had several severe droughts over the past 10 to 12 years. And it's a critically important issue. We've had wildfires that have gone through Gatlinburg and come into the mountains of Western North Carolina. And then as we look at the climate crisis and rising sea levels in Eastern North Carolina, we're seeing the emergence of what are known as ghost forests. And what that is, as the sea level is rising, the salt water is then infiltrating the fresh water underneath the ground in the aquifers, and it's resulting in tree death. So you may have seen this. Some farmers are already experiencing this on some of our coastal counties that of course border the Atlantic. And it's just another symptom of what's happening with the climate crisis. Now, what can the federal government do? The federal government needs to apply what is happening here in North Carolina, which is a bold transition to a clean energy economy. We need to move away from coal-fired power plants. We need to move away from PFAS that is getting into our water through different sorts of materials in the environment. And one of the things that I sponsored when I was in the Senate was the toxic substance in water bill, the primary sponsor of that. And that was due to the fact that we found low levels of PFAS in Jordan Lake, which the PFAS was sort of coming into the groundwater there from the Greensboro airport, which I thought was interesting. So the ramifications in one region have clear ramifications even far away. So we just have to strengthen our regulations. We have to give the EPA and Secretary Regan, we have to give the EPA teeth to enforce mechanisms and the federal laws and rules to make sure that industries are not abusing and polluting our environment.
Thank
Was that
you.
time? Thank you.
Yes, that was time. Thank you, Senator Searcy. Senator Nickel, you're up next. Would you need the question again?
No, I've got it. Thanks.
Certainly.
Yeah, listen, I'm somebody who went to Raleigh to fight the climate crisis. I'm proud to have traveled and worked for Vice President Al Gore. This is an issue that is personally important to me. And I hope that folks, as you look at this race, you'll look at what trusted sources are telling you about our records and who to support. I'm proud to be supported by groups like the Sierra Club in this campaign. I've got 2 kids and they deserve to grow up on a healthy planet. And, it is the hottest year on record every single year. We've got to address climate change. And I want to point out 2 very big differences between me and Sam Searcy. For the short time before he quit the Senate, we had 2 bills that I think are really important. Number one, I co-sponsored the Polluter Pays Act. This is a bill that says polluters should pay for the environmental damage they make, not the ratepayers. Sam Searcy didn't support that. And worst of all, he voted for the Duke power bill that will allow Duke to raise your rates. He was one of only 5 Democrats to vote for that. That's why the environmental community is with me. And there are some big differences here. As a state senator, I have fought to protect our environment, to protect clean water. I stood up to protect the Umstead State Park and stop the RTU quarry. And we have made amazing progress on that. Public lands are not for sale. That's something I'm very proud of. And in Congress, I'm committed to supporting legislation that would fully fund conservation programs and ensure working families access to clean air and clean water free from PFAS contamination. I'm committed to fighting for working people and a healthy planet, not big corporations like Duke and corporate polluters.
Thank you. Mr. Lee, you're next. Would you like the question read again?
Excuse me, no ma'am. It says, what do you believe the federal government could and should do to address the future of clean, available water? Anything, everything, whatever is necessary. One of the things I don't think we do well enough is hold our corporations accountable who are responsible for some of this. And I think one of the reasons, well, there's obviously several reasons, but one of the reasons is they're not incentivized to do that. And one of the reasons they're not incentivized to do that is because our legislators don't hold them accountable for it, don't give them any kind of incentive to do it. They just let it keep happening. And you know, with the onset of misinformation on the internet, on social media, on wherever you find it, there's misinformation about climate change. And when their constituents believe that, and those are the people who are voting for them, they end up, you know, catering to their voters more than they're catering to planet Earth. And it's a terrible system that we're in right now because of that. You know, behind closed doors, they know the science, they agree with the science, but they're scared of their voters to actually do something about it. And that's not how government should work. So, you know, clean water is obviously our future. It's my kids' future. It's our future. We don't live without clean water. So anything, everything now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lee. And Mr. Click, do you need the question read again?
I do not. No, I'm good.
Wonderful.
And again, thank you for asking. Climate change is real. And I think that's something that I don't think we're going to find too many disagreements on this panel or in the audience about that, but climate change is real. We need to acknowledge that. We need to acknowledge that it is an existential threat, not only to our way of life, but to life itself. I say many times that democracy is under attack, and we need to push back hard against that. We need to push back hard against the attacks on our climate as well. I don't see that that all of our elected leaders are pushing back hard enough on that. We need to recognize the cause of the problem and solve it. Like everybody else, like the other candidates, I have children, I have 4 children, and I want to create an environment where they can go outside and breathe. According to the Environmental Panel on Climate Change, we are running out of time on this issue. The problem we have with our water supply is linked to climate change in general. Our national infrastructure is built on an industrial age foundation. We're still built on a coal and oil foundation. This is outdated by at least 100 years. We need to modernize our entire infrastructure, the way we get energy, the way we do business, the way we do anything. We need to modernize it to a 21st century model. To do that, we need to drastically reduce our carbon emissions footprint by cutting our dependence on fossil fuels. We need to focus on developing and expanding renewable and sustainable energy options, such as wind, solar, and even nuclear if necessary, to pull us off of fossil fuels. We need to provide businesses incentives to be environmentally friendly, right? We need to make sure that our elected officials aren't taking campaign contributions from large corporations who would continue to do this. And we need to develop a clean energy transportation infrastructure. These are all things that are necessary to combat climate change and to improve our water.
Thank you. Madam Chair, it's back to you.
Thank you, Ms. Okal. All right, so next up, I will be asking a question on the topic of public institutions. The order will be as follows: Senator Nickel, Mr. Lee, Mr. Click, and Senator Searcy. A marker of strong governments that support democratic ideals is the health of their institutions. For many years, many of America's institutions, like our public school system and postal service, have been challenged with underfunding and often direct undermining. Many of these challenges were exacerbated during the Trump administration through efforts to restructure, privatize, defund, or otherwise shrink singular programs and entire departments or agencies. How would you rate the overall health of American institutions, and which challenges pose the most risk to the prosperity of our communities in Congressional District 13? Once again, how would you rate the overall health of American institutions? Which challenges pose the most risk to the prosperity of our communities in Congressional District 13? Senator Nickel, when you begin, the timer begins.
Thanks so much. This has been one of the most central issues to my campaign, and another one where there is huge differences with my opponent. We have a system where corporations and the rich do not pay their fair share. This is the central issue for the federal government and for the state of North Carolina, and something I have been passionate about fighting as a state senator. We continue to give away more and more tax cuts for corporations and the wealthy, and we don't have enough money to fund our institutions, to fund public education. I've authored bills to roll back Republican tax cuts so we can make those investments in our state, and I want to do the same thing in Washington. I want to mention a few bills, though, because there's a big difference. I co-sponsored the $15 an hour minimum wage when I was in the Senate. Sam Searcy didn't even support it. He voted for more tax cuts for corporations, for more tax cuts for the wealthy. He was one of only 4 Democrats to vote in favor of that bill, and one of only 3 Democrats to vote in favor of corporate tax cuts. And on teacher compensation, he was one of only 5 Democrats to support a bill opposed by teachers. So there is a huge difference. The bill I authored in the Senate would roll back Republican tax cuts on corporations and the wealthy so they pay their fair share, and they don't pay their fair share right now. We have an upside down tax code where those at the top, if you're a pharmaceutical industry CEO like Sam Searcy, you're paying about 4% for state and local taxes. Those in the middle, the average taxpayer, they're paying about 8% of their income. So corporations and the wealthy have to pay their fair share. This is an issue that's central to our campaign and something that I'm excited to be fighting for when I go to Washington.
Thank you so much, Senator Nickel. Mr. Lee, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, ma'am, I got it. So the first question is, how would you rate the overall health of American institutions? Simple question is, they're better than they were a year ago. With the exception, I would say, of public education. And that one's obviously near and dear to my heart, being a special ed teacher. I've been doing it for 9 years now, and I have physically felt the decline of public education in my day-to-day life. It affects our morale. It affects discipline of kids. It affects everything we do on a daily basis. And we have the biggest problem we have in this country, I think, is the fact that we just have so many people that don't want to take education seriously. They don't want to make it the priority that it needs to be. And to me, it's the most important service we offer. It's the most important service that we will ever offer. And one side wants school choice. One side says, let's bolster public education. Well, you can't have public education, or you can't have school choice without public education. If public education suffers, if we starve it to death, and all of a sudden there's kids in Eastern North Carolina who, in a school choice model, only have one choice, and that choice sucks. Do they really have a choice? And so we've got, our biggest problem is our priority, and our priority on education is just backwards right now. And some of the things that have been mentioned throughout about corporate taxes, the overall tax structure and how we pay for this obviously needs to be improved. It's a system problem, just like a lot of this stuff. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Lee. Next, Mr. Click. Hello, should I pose the question again, or do you have it?
Oh, no, I've got it. I've got it. You know, our institutions are under attack. Make no mistake, democracy in America is under attack. Okay. In the question, you mentioned that many of these institutions were eroded during the Donald Trump administration. I believe that Donald Trump and those that follow him, and the entire Trumpism represent a clear and existential threat to the United States, to our democracy. And the January 6th insurrection made that clear. I believe if you're an elected official and you are not advocating for enforcing the 14th Amendment, Section 3 of the 14th Amendment to ban Donald Trump and anyone who participated in the insurrection from holding office, you're not doing all you need to do to protect America from these attacks on our institutions. He may no longer be president right now, but that force is still alive and well in our country, and it is eroding our democracy. We need to eliminate all forms of voter suppression. That is something that will affect Johnson County. It'll affect Wake County. It'll affect Harnett County. It'll affect Wayne County. Voter suppression affects everyone in every county and independent city in the United States. The John Lewis Voting Rights Act should be law, and it is not law, but it should be. And our elected officials have been unable to do that, have been unable to secure voting rights for every citizen in the United States. I believe that's an absolute failure. We need to push back on the attacks on our democracy. The corrupt practice of political gerrymandering. Our courts had to rescue us from gerrymandering. The legislature did not do this. The legislature did not solve gerrymandering in North Carolina. Our courts had to rescue us from that. And that's a failure on the legislature. Okay. We need to get corporate money out of politics. Right now, there are 3 elections in the United States: the money election, the primary election, and the general. And the money election determines who makes it through the rest. This is an erosion on our institutions of democracy. So we need to make sure that those things are protected. If we don't solve those problems, we cannot move forward and protect all of the institutions of the United States, all of our institutions.
Thank you, Mr.
Those are the
Click.
things we need to do.
Thank you very much. All right, up next, Senator Searcy, shall I repeat the question or do you have it?
I've got it. Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate it. So first of all, how would I rate our American institutions? I would probably give them a C if I had to give them a letter grade, but I do agree with Mr. Denton and Mr. Click that our institutions are better today under President Biden than they were by far under President Trump, who really undermined and degraded a lot of our great American institutions. And it was a threat to our democracy, a direct threat. Now, in terms of the financial and economic challenges here in CD 13, and how those institutions impact that prosperity, it is directly linked to public education. And this is something that I am absolutely passionate about. So my mother was a teacher assistant in the public school system, and my dad was a factory worker. So it was the public school system here in North Carolina that helped me get to college and become the first person in my college to graduate, first person in my family to graduate from college when I graduated from Appalachian State way back in 2000. Hard to believe it's been that long, but we've got to have a fundamental focus on public education and the federal funding that goes into that. I think that it's important to remember that in the state Senate, 25% of all the bills that I sponsored and co-sponsored dealt with our public school system. Also in the state Senate, out of all the opponents here on this call, I'm the one that has the most sponsored bills that were then signed into law by Governor Cooper. So I think that it's important that your representation also be effective. And when we talk about public school funding, it directly ties into our economy. So there are 2 huge announcements that recently came out: VinFast down in Chatham County, and also the electric vehicle battery factory over in Greensboro with Toyota. Those were made possible because we have a strong community college system here in North Carolina. And I serve on the community college board, and we have 58 constituent institutions. We're the 3rd largest system in the country. And we do rely on a mix of federal funding and state funding. So I think that as a member of Congress, we've got to really laser focus in on our community college system because it is the workforce training tool of our economy, and it's driving a lot of economic growth and development. And that's how you lift our communities out of poverty into prosperity. I do believe education is the ticket. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Senator Searcy. All right, next, Mr. Ms. Okal will ask a question about the Biden administration. Ms. Okal, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, this question is about the Biden administration. The order is Mr. Lee, Mr. Click, Senator Searcy, and Senator Nickel. President Biden and his administration assumed office just over 15 months ago. In your opinion, discuss one thing the Biden administration has not done well and one thing the administration has done well in terms of meeting the needs or obligations to the people of Congressional District 13. Again, in your opinion, discuss one thing the Biden administration has not done well, and one thing the administration has done well in terms of meeting the needs or obligations to the people of Congressional District 13. Mr. Lee, you're up.
Okay, thank you. It's a tough time to be president of the United States, isn't it? He seems to can do no right. I would say that the biggest thing that he has failed on, and I don't know that it's a failure per se, but some of the things that he quote unquote promised, the federal minimum wage going up. Oh gosh, what was the other thing that I just had on my mind? I just lost it. Infrastructure bill. Those were kind of strikeouts, and I'm not sure that it was handled perfectly. I don't know exactly how else you would have handled it, but man, they were very public strikeouts on those two. And I bet he would love a do-over on all of that. What he's done well, the economy's bounced back nicely. I don't think it's with the exception of inflation, all the other indicators, all the other economic indicators look good. I mean, even Donald Trump's favorite thing to brag about, the stock market has bounced right back. So the economy's doing okay if we can get a handle on inflation. And I don't think there's anything we should do about that right now. I think when you've got an inflationary period that is brought on by a pandemic, which is something we've never before seen, it's risky to attempt to do anything to try to rein that in. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Click, do you need the question again?
No, I don't. This one's a tough one. This one's a tough question. I'm going to go on record as saying that I'm a Biden fan. So I think the administration has done a lot of things well. I think he was handed what we say here in the South, a big old hot mess. And he's handled that hot mess pretty well. He's put some things together well. So I do think that all of our party has failed to rally behind some of the critical initiatives that President Biden has so smartly wanted to push forward, to include the infrastructure bill and Build Back Better bill that Denton had just mentioned. So those are things that we as a group of Democrats need to get behind stronger. Not the Democrats in this room, I'm sure, but in other rooms, West Virginia. So we need to push back on do better on those things. If I could point to one thing that I think that the administration does need to do next and address, it is addressing high prices, particularly the price of gasoline. President Biden has investigated gas companies for collusion, but we need to investigate those issues harder. We need to investigate collusion in all business entities. That's part of the reason why prices are so high, and that's affecting working class families right here in District 13. So we need to make sure that corporations are investigated, and that collusion behaviors and price rigging is looked into. I don't know that the administration has pushed hard on that. But there are many unforeseen things that we just couldn't account for. For example, the invasion of Ukraine, which I think the president is handling well as well. So those are the two things as far as done well, and we need to do next is definitely take on corporations.
Thank you, Mr. Click. Senator Searcy, do you need the question again?
It's one thing Biden has done well and one thing that he has not done extremely well, if I
Yes.
read it correctly.
Yes.
Thank you. I think let's start with the negative first and what I think the Biden administration has struggled with. And I truly believe it's messaging. Biden, I think, Nathan, Mr. Click, you said it very well. He took over a hot mess. I mean, there's no question about that. And look what he's done. We were able to withdraw from Afghanistan. And yes, it was a little shaky, but we have to remember President Trump is the one that negotiated that withdrawal. We have seen the largest drop in unemployment in our nation's history. He is the only president that has been able to pay off $1 trillion of debt, which was mainly run up by tax cuts that were issued under the Trump administration. And then we were able to get the coronavirus bill passed, which had a lot of infrastructure funding in it in the first round, not the Build Back Better, but the first one. And I think those are marvelous wins. And I feel like we get lost sometimes as a party when it comes to our messaging, and we don't sometimes talk about what we are for and what we're pushing for, and we focus on things that we are against. And so that's why in our campaign, we just focus on the future, what it is that we can do in Congress to help impact the people positively here in CD 13 and move the ball forward. But I think to surmise, those are the two things I would point out. And I know that's a whole litany of positive things, but I can't limit it to one with President Biden. I think he's done a great job.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
Searcy. Thank you. Senator Nickel, do you need me to read the question again?
No, thanks.
Thank you.
Listen, I have been proud to work for President Biden. I traveled all over the country with him during the first term when he was vice president. And he supported me in every campaign with his endorsement. First time I ran for the Senate, he recorded a robocall for me. So we have a lot of good connections and friends in the Biden White House. And as a congressman, I'm going to be able to use those relationships to help the 13th Congressional District. I think President Biden has done a great job passing the infrastructure, package, the American Jobs and Infrastructure Program. He has restored our diplomatic relationships around the world. And I am most excited right now for Judge Jackson to be confirmed to the U.S. Supreme Court. Some really exciting stuff is happening there, and I think, if we're talking about things where we got to do better, when you're the party in power, no matter what, people are going to blame you for where things are in the economy. And, the big issue that I'm hearing from over and over with my constituents as I'm talking to folks in my Senate district and then around District 13 is inflation. Folks are struggling to make ends meet and pay their bills as the cost of basic goods continues to rise. And we got to do something, and we can. The inflation we're seeing is a direct result of lasting issues with our supply chain due to the pandemic. We need to bolster our supply chains with investment in our infrastructure and transportation workforce. We also need to boost American manufacturing through the Advanced Manufacturing USA program. We've got to crack down on anti-competitive behaviors by big corporations that allow them to jack up the prices. And gas prices have been a big concern as well, too. So I support a temporary suspension of the gas tax to help keep folks afloat as we deal with these supply chain issues. And with rising prices, we've also raise our wages. That means raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour and adjusting it for inflation, and including generous cost of living adjustments for our seniors. There's a lot we can do, and I'm excited to roll up my sleeves to work on these. Washington.
Thank you. All right, thank you all, gentlemen. Back to you, Madam Chair, for our closing statements.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we are going to go into closing statements. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to give their final remarks for this portion of the forum. After the remarks are done, we will all be whisked away into different breakout rooms where we will stay put and the candidates will come visit us. There will be about 6 minutes in each breakout room, and 1 minute before, or at the 5-minute mark, Frank is going to announce that you've got 1 minute left and we can wrap things up. And after that, the candidates will move, and I think Frank's going to orchestrate that. But those of us who are moderators and those of us in the audience will stay put. And you can expect that there will be 2 questions asked. It'll be the same 2 questions for every candidate. And fellas, I'm going to encourage you to answer in an alacritous manner. Try to keep it under 2 minutes if you can, so that you do have time to actually interact with some of the folks that are in the breakout rooms. We will be keeping time, but I'm just letting you know that ahead of time. So right now, it will be time for closing statements. As Mr. Click was the first person to have to answer one of the forum questions, he gets to go last. Here is the order. Mr. Lee, Senator Nickel, Senator Searcy, and Mr. Click. Again, Mr. Lee, Senator Nickel, Senator Searcy, and Mr. Click. Fellas, you have 2 minutes each, and we will now open the floor for Mr. Lee.
All right, thank you very much. A few years ago, a group called More in Common, they did a massive survey of voters, and they determined that 67% of us are in something called the exhausted majority. It's exactly what it sounds like. Most of us are completely exhausted by the polarization, by the refusal to seek common ground, by the constant noise that is also negative and divisive, that most Americans are becoming disenfranchised with it all. I just don't believe our leaders reflect the ability of the vast majority of everyday Americans to have mature, constructive dialogue about our issues and do whatever is necessary to coexist. It's the political extremes that are in the heat of a Cold War and on the verge of tearing us apart, not the calm, rational, realistic majority. We'd actually be a stronger nation if our parties were a little bit weaker. And because this duopoly has an insurmountable grasp on all available, power, our politics do not reflect our reality. I live in Johnston County. Most of the people I know are Republicans. And if I believe the media and memes and social media comments, I should hate most of them and they should damn sure hate me. It's just not reality. So maybe I'm not the guy going around saying I'm a proud Democrat, but I'm absolutely a proud American. And yeah, I'm a bit of a political outcast, a bit of a political rebel, having run unaffiliated last time, and nobody's really excited to have me on their team. I was honestly probably a little happier being unaffiliated, but all of that is also the reason I believe I have a shot to win. Since January 1st of this year, North Carolina has over 73,000 new voter registrations. Over 70% of them registered unaffiliated. 70% since January 1st. People are tiring of this toxic partisanship because it just doesn't reflect the reality of the everyday world we live in. My name is Denton Lee, and I'd be honored to represent that reality. Thank you.
All right, folks, here's some information on Mr. Lee. If you would like to
add one thing, the Denton Lee, it should be dentonleenc.com.
Oh, well, we will fix that. I just copied and pasted what you sent me. So here we go.
Then I'm sorry, it's my fault. I apologize.
No problem. So here is Mr. Lee's information, and it's dentonlee.nc.com and Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And thank you so much, sir. Okay, up next, we will have Senator Nickel.
Hey, thanks so much. It's great to see so many friendly faces and supporters on this Zoom. This is a campaign about hope and change, and real change is what working families need right now. People are struggling with high costs, low wages, and an economy that doesn't give everyone a fair shot. Working for President Obama, I learned how to build strong coalitions that deliver results. That's why I built a coalition of endorsements from elected leaders, unions, and voter protection groups in this campaign. That's the kind of support Democrats will need to win in November and build a better future for all of us. In this primary race, I'm the only candidate with a record of fighting for working families when it matters most, even through a pandemic. I've spent my career fighting to level the playing field for North Carolina families, and I'm proud of my record on the issues that matter most to voters watching right now. I am committed to being an accessible and transparent member of Congress, just as I've been in the state Senate. That especially means I put my policy positions up on a website for everyone to see. Listen, we need to stop Republican attacks on our voting rights. We need to fight for an economy that works for everyone. And we need to make sure our kids have access to high quality education that doesn't break the bank. I hope to earn your support. If you'd like to learn more about my plans to work for you in Congress or check out our list of endorsements, please visit my website at wileynickelforcongress.com. You can contact us anytime, and all of our contact information and social media links are going to be included in the slides and the chats. We're here to answer your questions and address your concerns anytime. I'm running for Congress because I believe in North Carolina. And I believe that if we run a campaign that gives voters a real reason to come out to vote, we're going to win this seat in November. Thanks so much. Great to see everyone. Looking forward to talking some more in the breakouts.
Thank you so much, Senator Nickel. And here is his information. If you would like to check out more about him, here you go. And we are happy to share that information with everyone. All right. Thank you very much. Up next, Senator Searcy, you get 2 minutes for closing remarks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate it. And thank you all again for organizing tonight's event. One thing that I think is critically important that folks need to understand about the folks that we elect and our elected officials are, what are the summation of your life experiences and how has that influenced your policy and your positions as you seek office? So I am a native North Carolinian. I grew up in Western North Carolina on a dairy and tobacco farm. It was a very rural area, and went to the public school system my entire life. When I was 12 years old, my dad actually lost his job as it was shipped overseas to a different country. And our family then lost our home. And we had to move in with my grandmother for a while, and times were very tough. But that's when I really committed to do as well as I could do in public school. Worked my way through, graduated from Appalachian State, first person in my family to graduate from college, went on to law school, came back to the Triangle, and then the Great Recession hits and I get laid off. And I had just gotten married, we just had a baby and just bought a tiny little house in Chapel Hill. And so for 2.5 years, I worked in the garden center at Lowe's until I could find a job in the clinical research industry. When I found that job, I excelled, got promoted, and then was able to create 2 companies of my own. And I'm very proud to have been able to create jobs, good paying jobs, and contribute to our economy here in North Carolina. And I think that when we look at who we elect, we've got to focus on what the major issues are really right now facing us. There are 3 main things. Number one, we do have the voting rights issues, and the John Lewis Voting Rights Act does need to be passed, as we've heard numerous times on this call tonight. Number 2, we've got to protect a woman's right to choose. I do believe that's going to come under attack soon, and we need to do what we can at the federal level to prohibit that. And number 3 is the healthcare issue. We've got to address healthcare through the ways that we have talked about tonight to make sure that we rectify that issue and get healthcare, high quality, affordable healthcare to the majority of our people. Thank you. I appreciate your time. Have a good evening.
Thank you so much, Senator Searcy. All right. Here's some information. If you would like to check out Sam Searcy, his website, Facebook, and Twitter. And up next, Mr. Nathan Click. If you're ready, the floor is yours. You've got 2 minutes.
I am ready, and thank you for giving me the time. Again, I appreciate everybody coming out here tonight. My name is Nathan Click. I'm a husband, a father, a business owner, and a veteran. Now, we've talked about inflation tonight. We've talked about high prices. We've talked about working families tonight. I am one of those working families. I'm a small business owner. I was one of the many, many, many small businesses around the United States that could not get support during this pandemic, that couldn't get access to financing, much needed financing, that couldn't secure a PPP loan, paycheck protection loan, to support their business. My business lost a lot of money. My family lost a lot of money during this pandemic. We're talking about strengthening working families and helping families put food on the table. I am the father of one of those families that has been struggling to put food on the table during this pandemic. These are issues that affect my life, and I know they affect the lives of folks in NC-13. I know they affect the lives of folks in Johnson County, Harnett County, Wayne County, and South Wake County. These aren't just talking points or party sound bites that I read off of a card. This is real life for me. And I know it's real life for many of the people that are watching this now and that will watch this in the future. I'm not the kind of politician that's going to brag about all the people that they know, talk about all the backs that they've scratched and all the people scratching their backs. But these are real life issues that affect everyday people. I understand what it means to not have access to healthcare, even after the Affordable Health Care Act was passed. I know what that means. I know what it means to have served your country in the military and then come back out of the military and not be able to access healthcare or be run through the ringer on getting access to education. I know what that means. I know what it means to be driving down the road, and when the lights go on behind your car, the sinking feeling that you get in your stomach because you don't know how this encounter is going to go. We have drastic problems with systemic racism in our justice issues that our elected officials have failed to address time and time again. A new holiday is nice, but we need actual action on this issue. I know how those things feel because they are real to me. These are things that I experience every day. These are things that my friends in my community experience every day. And we need elected leaders who understand the real plight of people today. I'm Nathan Click and I'm running for Congress.
Thank you so much, Mr. Click. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So here's some information. If you would like to find out more about Mr. Click, you can visit these links and research. Okay, so this is what's going to happen now. We will be all whooshed to our breakout rooms in a moment. Mr. Sokolowski has put us in basically even groups. There are 4 breakout rooms, A, B, C, and D. Zach Burley, who is assisting this evening, is the moderator for breakout room A. Mr. Click, you will begin in breakout room A. Brandy Brown is the moderator for breakout room B. Sam Searcy, you will begin in breakout room B. I am the moderator in breakout room C. Wiley Nickel, you will begin in breakout room C. And Elaine Okal is the moderator for breakout room D. Denton Lee, you will begin in breakout room D. Folks, when it's time for the candidates to move, the candidates will move to the next breakout room. So for example, Mr. Click, if you start out in A, you'll go to D next, and so on and so forth. Again, we will have about 6 minutes. There are 2 questions that will be asked. Any extra time can be used for the candidates to interact with the audiences. We do have moderators. If anyone is disruptive in any way, we will remove you. So please don't be disruptive. This is supposed to be a learning opportunity for all of us. I want to go ahead and thank everybody for being here this evening. I want to give my sincere thanks to all of the candidates who showed up. I mean, it's a dog and pony show, is it not? Y'all have to just be out front all the time, and it's got to be difficult, and I appreciate you. I want to thank everybody for showing up this evening and getting some information about these candidates. This primary is critical, and it's going to make a big difference if we can get CD13 back in the general. All right. At this time, we will now begin the process to move to the breakout rooms. At the end of the final breakout room, you are all free to go. Frank, I'm leaving it up to you now.
All right, everyone. No action is needed on your part. The breakout rooms will load automatically. Enjoy the ride.